Hello everyone, welcome back to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. I sincerely hope you've had a great weekend wherever you are on this big blue planet of ours. Of course, I am here in Brisbane, Australia. It is 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Monday the 2nd of August. And we are back in lockdown here in Brisbane, the southeast Queensland, the sort of bottom corner, if you will, of Queensland. We got put back into a snap lockdown at 4 p.m. on, when was it, on Saturday, and today it's been announced, which was kind of not a surprise to anyone watching the news over the last 48 hours. That has now been extended. We were told originally that it would be 3 days, but I think we all kind of knew that it would go longer, and now it's been extended to 4 p.m. Sunday, which means we'll have been in lockdown by that point for 8 days. This is a hard lockdown. Like we are not even allowed to go walking in our suburb without a mask on. So yeah, so there you go. There are worse places in the world, it must be said, to be locked down. But if you are a fellow Brisbaneite, if you are on the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, if you're in New South Wales, down in Sydney, and you're in lockdown, I hope that you're doing okay, and that you are, that you're, for the next 40, 50 minutes that we can spend together and take your mind off things and talk voice, which is what we do here every Monday. And so if you're a regular, if you're watching live, hi, so good to have you in the live chat. And we've got a really active live chat already today. And of course, for those of you who watch this as a replay, which so many of you do, it is so good to have you join us. Today we're doing a Q&A. It's where you ask the questions and I provide the answers. More often than not, but every now and then I get thrown a curveball and I have to put my hand up and say, I don't know the answer to that. But certainly most of the time I'm able to provide some kind of answer. Hey, last week, if you didn't catch last week's show, it was such an important show. And it was an important show for a number of reasons. We talked with Nadine Mannion about, she's a singing teacher who is currently in lockdown down in Sydney. And she is a person who is really passionate. She specializes in working with transgender voices. I just want to say thank you to you, the Voice Essentials community at large, for the manner in which you conducted yourself around this topic. I know, I am very aware, very cognizant that for many people, for a variety of different reasons, that this is a very difficult subject, the transgender voice, particularly for those who find it a difficult discussion from a religious point of view. And so I just want to say thank you to those of you who may feel very strongly about the area of transgender, non-binary, LGBTQI+. That for those of you who do feel strongly in a negative sense towards that discussion, I want to say thank you to you for the manner in which you chose to conduct yourself during that discussion, because I don't think from memory that we had any big challenges in the chat. It was a really respectful live chat, which was fantastic. The video has received more thumbs down than the channel normally receives, but that's okay. I know this can be a divisive subject, and so I do want to just acknowledge those of you who may have found that a difficult topic. If you're interested, can I encourage you to go and have a watch, even if you are just wanting to learn more about that space. Of course, we were talking about the development and the shaping and teaching of the transgender voice. And so we really didn't, steer far off that track. But it was an interesting conversation. So I encourage you to go and check that out. Next week we have got, I'm so looking forward to having our guest on next week, Sharon Tree from Glengrove Studios in Canberra, which I know many of you maybe think that Sydney is the capital of Australia. Sydney is not the capital of Australia. Canberra is our national capital. It's about 3.5, 4 hours south of Sydney. And anyway, so Sharon lives down there. Sharon is among my closest friends and colleagues within the teaching fraternity worldwide, and we have been good friends for many years. Sharon has a passion for music theatre, and I'm sure that music theatre will come up as a part of our discussion. That is, if we can get into talking. Sharon and I, anyway, I'm just really looking forward to our chat. I'll try not to let it become too overly personalised, because when Sharon and I get together and start chin wagging, that's what can happen. But nonetheless, Sharon, do you know what? I asked Sharon to come onto the show. Oh, it'd have to be 2 or 3 years ago, and she's finally agreed to come on. So I'm really looking forward to having Sharon join us. So that will be good. So, of course, if you aren't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the white bell icon, just so you get reminded. You'll get a notification sent out to you, so that you can come and join us next week for the live chat, the live show with Sharon, because I think that's going to be a bit of a highlight for the year. So there you go. That's kind of all we've got to catch up with for as far as the studio news goes. And so we've already got a range of questions in the live chat. And just a reminder, as we get into today's live chat, if there's a few things for you to be aware of with asking your questions in the live chat, for those of you who have not done before. Firstly, we prioritize super chats. So if you want to just add a few dollars to your question, you can do that at the bottom of the live chat. And that way I prioritize your question, so it'll go to the top of the list, and so that we make sure that we say thank you for the live chat, for the super chat. That all of those proceeds go directly, they get fed directly back into the channel, and so they're very gratefully and thankfully received. And then we get into everyone else's questions. You will note that, in fact, to ask a question, in fact, to leave any discussion in the live chat, you must be subscribed. And we do that in part to help sort of self-moderate. We've got our moderator, Linda, in the live chat, always keeping an eye. But, we kind of have a bit of an automated process of moderating, just by making sure that everyone who is leaving a comment actually has subscribed to the channel, and that's a good thing. And then if you are wanting to ask a question, you haven't subscribed, you've got to go and subscribe. Well, in fact, I think you just have to hit the button at the bottom of the page, and then it will cause you to then wait 5 minutes to ask a question. So there you go. That's how we do it. Okay, so I think what we need to do is get into some Q&A for today. And right off the bat, the Feel Good Index. Thank you, Terry. Terry's a private student of mine. We hung out for a good hour this morning, which was always good to have a session with. You know what? Terry kicks my week off more often than not on a Monday. First session, and Terry's in the US. Of course, I'm here in Australia, and I just love my sessions with. I love them with Terry, but I love them with pretty much all of my regular students. So there you go. Thank you, Terry, for the no questions, just gratitude. You're a champ. Okay, let's get into some questions, and our first question comes from Matt. And which is no surprise to anyone because Matt's a regular here. Question: why, when you did the Find Your Vocal Range video, did you stop the low notes at C2? Matt, the reason being, now I think you're referencing, in fact, I saw your question, which I haven't had a chance to go through. And do you know why I get bombarded with questions in the comments of the videos, and so usually I dedicate a good hour each week to going through and answering them. And I saw yours come through, Matt, and I haven't answered it yet. So I'll answer it now for you. That short video, which is only about a minute and a half, that video, which I posted last week, is actually a quick edit, a snippet, if you will, taken from my most popular video, voice types, Find Your Voice Type, and I've just taken it and put it together so it's just the tracks. And so that snippet where we go looking for your vocal range, we work down the scale, and we go down to C2 as you're noting, Matt, and then I think we go up to E6 when we go looking for high notes. The reason for those parameters, there are definitely people who can sing lower than C2, and Matt, I know you're one of them. And there are definitely people who can sing higher than E6. But the C2 is the textbook bottom note required to classify bass, generalized bass classification, and the E6 is the generalized note, the textbook note to classify the generalized soprano. Of course, as I say in the bigger explainer video, there is no one size fits all, and so when we're using these generic voice type sort of parameters, it's important to remember that not everyone watching the videos is going to fall into those. And so, for example, if you can get down to a C2, Matt, you are almost certainly a bass. Now, Matt, in your case, I know you're a bass. Now, the German Fach system, the FACH system of classifying the voice, does actually break, voices down into far more subcategories than simply bass, baritone, tenor, the three main approximate voice classifications for men or males, and then alto, mezzo, soprano. And so it's really important to just be mindful that that these are average, they're generalized, and that's hopefully, I won't go any further into it, Matt, but I think you understand. Adam has just asked a question. Thank you, Adam, for the super chat. Thanks, Dr. Dan. Love the online forum. Difficult times. Yeah, it is, Adam. And can I say, it's much more difficult for many others than myself. Jody and I, my wife, and I were only just again yesterday afternoon as we sat on our back patio looking over our beautiful backyard. There are far worse places in the world than our house to be locked down, and so my heart goes out to those of you who may be in more trying circumstances than I am. But yeah, difficult times for the world in general. Adam asks, is there an exercise you would suggest for children under 13 to develop less nasal tone? My daughter wants to learn the lifelong joy of singing. I'm so pleased that your daughter wants to learn the lifelong joy of singing. And can I say to you, Adam, I don't teach privately. I don't teach people under the age of 16, mostly because my approach to teaching is very adult orientated, and I find that for the most part, the younger, brain just doesn't respond well to my teaching. And it's also partly because what I would love to encourage especially your daughter, is you want to develop a real love for music at that age. And can I tell you that this is what I've done with my own children, is during their formative years, in the primary school into early high school, I encourage the development of music appreciation. And piano is not the only instrument. Certainly guitar is a good instrument, but I think piano, keyboard, is probably the pick of instruments that I'd be encouraging a young person to learn. And because it is so foundational to, when you're learning piano, you're learning music structure. You're not just learning the instrument, but you're learning music structure, musicianship, music theory, and I think it's a really positive thing to do. So that would be the first thing. Back to your specific question about nasality. The thing about even a 13-year-old, they're still physically forming. And so I wouldn't get too hung up about perhaps if a student or a person, in this case your daughter, you feel that they're got some hypernasality going on. If by the age of 15, 16, that's still some concern, then you might want to explore that further, and by that stage you'd be looking for individual singing lessons. It's not to say that you shouldn't have individual singing lessons before 16, but you'd want to find yourself with the right teacher. And I'm very happy to say I would not be that teacher, but and so the reason you'd be careful around the nasality thing is because the body of that individual is still growing, and as we grow, the development of shapes and sizes, the skull, the jaw, everything is still growing, it's still forming. And so any work that you might do around, nasality at the age of 12, 13 certainly may address the issue specifically at that point, but it may not necessarily be something that lasts, beyond. Now, there are young students who are working professionally, and therefore, even at that age, there is worth in workshopping specific areas of the voice, because they need to develop skills around very specific times. But more often than not, and I take from the way you've worded your question, Adam, the lifelong joy of singing, it may not be something that you've got to get too concerned about. Can I add, before we get into another question, that, do you know what, nasality is not, hypernasality can be a challenge, but every voice produces nasalized tones, M's, N's, NG's, and so you don't need, it cops a pretty hard beating, nasality, but ones like Kristen Chenoweth and the like. I've got a hair in my thing. Oh my you know, I just got a message from my son, and he's asking, this is hilarious. I'm going to look at this because, can you please do a shout out? I'm not going to mention your friends by name, Jaden, but I will give a shout out to my son's friends. Hello to all of my son's friends who may or may not be watching this show. So don't get too caught up on whether your what's the right word, nasality is such. It can actually be a really, really powerful signature tone in your voice. Okay, let's keep going down here. Sir, I feel this is lack sheep deep S. Lack deep S. Sir, I feel difficulty in producing voice only during exercises. Even if I try from diaphragm or some placements, I have experimented a lot, but I'm tired. Please help me out. Often, not always, and can I just remind us that this, whenever I'm giving an answer to these questions, I have to, by reason of the context, I've got to be very generalized. And so often our difficulty in producing voice is due to some form of hyperfunction, whether that be too much effort, too much air pressure, whether it be a bearing down of supraglottic musculature, extrinsic musculature. And so a lot of that can be alleviated in part with the development of your breath management. Now you're referring to your diaphragm in that case. And so we just have to be mindful that it's not actually your diaphragm that we need to orientate to with your breath management. And for you to learn more about breathing, I'd encourage you to go and check out I've got a number of videos on the channel about breath management. So that would be good for you to go and have a look at. So as far as your difficulty in producing voice, I would dare say it's got something to do with you overdriving the sound. Wicco, I hope you really, and I think you did enjoy last week's show. I know it was an important subject for you, so I hope you got a lot out of that. Your question today, is it better to work one part of the voice per session, e.g. only falsetto training, and then after, then you're confident with each section then to bring them all together? Do you know what? There's actually no specific right or wrong way to go about this. I'm a big believer in we do need to, certainly in the beginning stages of learning to sing, we work areas of the voice in isolation, but we very quickly look to bring them together so that we're able to workshop and move the voice freely across registers. That all being said, then as we get further into our journey of developing the voice, there is certainly something to be gained by, at times, after you've done a good complete warm-up, for you to go and look at specific areas of the voice. I've got a whole video dedicated to how to structure your vocal workout, and as a part of that video, you can then download a pre-formatted guide through all of my exercises that specifically look at breath management, tone, alignment, pitch accuracy, and it walks you through the exercises that you can align with those things. And so it's not only your registers that you can be very specific about in a particular workout. Just like when we go to the gym, you know, we go to the gym and today might be legs day, you know. I think we all feel it after legs day. We might do just cardio on a particular day. We might do, you know, upper body strengthening on a particular day. But that's never in pure isolation, because you've always got to warm up and prepare, and so there's always some level of cross training going on, I think. But hopefully that answers your question, Wicco. Alina Simmons, how can I make my voice sound very dreamy, smooth, comforting, and soft? Alina, I saw your question at the very beginning of the show, and can I just make an interesting point? One of the ways we go about achieving what you're looking for is to employ and use our breath in a manner that gives expression. So there's an ad running on Australian TVs at the moment during the Olympics by Toyota is the brand, and it's all about half of the ad is about the inhale, and then half of the ad is about the exhale. And it's a powerful ad. It's all supposed to be about, breathing fresh air. But actually what they're showing is the way we human beings express. And we as human beings, we hear the exhalation and inhalation. The way we do that, we pick up on the emotive value of that by virtue of the breath. So surprised intake, or a sort of a grunt, sort of a growl, which is and so it is important to when we're looking to develop some of the things you're looking for, dreamy, smooth, comforting, then we're using breath to color. And I do have a whole video, Alina, that you might want to go and check out, and I think you'll find that helpful on the channel, where we look at how to use breathy tone to our advantage. Coming down, Aaron Short Music, recently found your channel. I'm working on my mixed voice, as I've mostly used my chest voice and falsetto. It just seems like such a holy grail thing. Do you think anyone can learn to access this? Absolutely, Aaron. I'm taking from the spelling of your name that you are that you would identify as male voice user. You're using your voice in a male kind of way. I find that most males really struggle around what you're calling mix. But here's the thing, I think possibly what you're actually identifying is your upper register. Aaron, can I encourage you to go and find my video that's titled, I think it's called Head Voice, Chest Voice, and Mixed Voice. I think that's what it's called. It's about 17 minutes, 18 minutes long. It's a longer video. I want you to go and look at that. It's about voice registration. The reason I'm directing you to that video is because it goes into a little bit more depth around an understanding about voice registers. And part of the reason I don't tend to use the language, head voice, chest voice, mixed voice, outside of acknowledging the regular use in every common day vernacular, is because it can lead to confusion. Whereas there are other language points or terms that we can use that will help to clarify. And so in developing your upper register, what we then empower is the ability to manage the balancing of the musculature that then leads to mix. And so the answer to your question, can anyone learn to sing in mix? Absolutely, as long as you are developing first and foremost your capacity to work in a very knowledgeable and intentional way around what muscles are engaging when. But the key for you, Aaron, is to hopefully go and check out that video. And again, look, it's a 17-minute video. And something I'm regularly reminding everyone here at the channel, please watch my videos the whole way through, beginning to end. And I know we live in a very fast-paced, quick, you know, grab a thing and my attention's then grabbed by something else. And the way I structure my videos is that I don't top end, you know, maybe I should, but anyway, I don't top end all of my information in the beginning and then there's nothing worthwhile, you know, learning at the end. They're a whole package. There is always something to learn that I'm explaining further, unpacking further. And so when it comes to watching my videos, you know, please try to watch beginning right through to the end, just so you don't miss any key points that are necessary in the learning process. I hope you can do that, Aaron. JudCon188, I heard someone say half air and half voice, and then he said you have to split them in half. Do you know what it means, or is it just nonsense? I'm half air and half voice. Look, I'm going to stop short of saying it's nonsense because, you know, we're grabbing a sound bite of what they've said, and I'd have to know the context in what they've said it. Yeah, sometimes I think if I dropped, you know, if you dropped in, you know, halfway through a private lesson with a student, and you heard me say some of the things that we say in lessons, you go, what on earth is he talking about? And that's simply because the student and I are in the process and we're explaining something, and I'm trying sometimes to find a way to say something that the student can really lock onto. And so, you know, sometimes you're left going, out of context, that makes no sense, and it might even sound like nonsense, but within the context it makes complete sense. Look, you don't, yeah, so I don't think you can say half air and half voice just out on its own. We're not a volume switch, you know. I often will say to, you know, my, I won't say it because my, you know how you say, hi Siri, I don't have any Apple devices, so I'll say it like this. Hi Siri, turn down to 50% volume, and so your device will turn to 50% volume. We're not a volume switch. We don't have half air and, you know, or I'm gonna dial that up to, you know, 40%, 50%, 60% air. We work on measuring and balancing. Maybe you would find it helpful to think about it as percentages, but it's more about identifying the aesthetic value that you're in search of, and then looking to manage your voice in such a way that you can achieve the aesthetic value that you want. And that's the kicker, right? This singing thing is all about achieving an aesthetic outcome. You know, learning to sing from a technical standpoint, a functional standpoint, has great value, and you know, I'm a voice teaching nerd, and so I love it. But ultimately, that is all about the aesthetic outcome, the performance, the communication. And so, you know, so what we have to do is develop the skills to work the function in order to achieve the outcome, which is the aesthetic. And so we have to have skills that enable us to balance our air and balance our muscular response and what have you. Manisha Mishra, sir, does hyperthyroidism affect singing? It certainly can. I have a whole video on this very subject on thyroids and singing. Please go and check that out on the channel. It goes into in a little bit of depth around the effects of hypo and hyperthyroidism, and I want you to go and check that out, Manisha. Vipin Kumar, how to find our voices for beginners. One of the best ways you can find your voice as a beginner is to actually join my online course. The first module is completely free. Check out the website that's going across the bottom of the screen right now, voiceessentials.com.au, and by doing that course, you will spend time with your voice, which is one of the key attributes to finding your voice. It's not that your voice is lost, right? It's the fact that maybe you just haven't had the opportunity to spend time with your voice. And so I would encourage you, Manisha, to use my courses at voiceessentials.com.au to work that through. Okay, how are we going? Anna Mancini, how do you find out what voice type you are? I've been told I'm an alto. How can I check? I have in fact, my largest viewed video is find your voice type. How to find your voice type. It's got 1.5 million views, I think. Go and check that out. If you just go across to my channel, go to the videos tab, and then if you filter that according to most popular, I think that's the selection, it will be the very top. Go and watch that video, and that will talk you through it. There's a whole downloadable worksheet and the whole deal, and you can check that out. Dust Composer, Dr. Dan, in my place, there's no translation for the term vocal belting, so it's kind of difficult to describe belt. What is the best explanation for the term vocal belt? Yeah, that's a good question. I typically, when I'm talking and introducing the term belt to a new student, I refer to belt as healthy, sustained volume, generally in the upper register, in full, shortened dominant voice. So it's loud, it's intense, it's highly energized, and it's generally in really high notes, in full voice, or what some people, as we've talked about earlier today, chest voice sound. Now, you will find then a breakdown from there as to how to describe belt, and do we call it, is there mixed belt, is there soft belt, is there light belt? But as a starting point, I hope that is helpful. That's how I kind of tend to approach it. Healthy, sustainable volume, because the other less balanced, less sustainable approach to volume production for a voice is typically a yell function. Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful, Dust. Ben Snow, do you have any tips to approach a bright tone while belting raspy high notes without sounding overly thin? It's going to come down to the individual singer, Ben, because dependent on your larynge, the size of and fullness of your vocal folds is then going to depend on how much weight you're able to, in a healthy, sustainable way, apply to change any thinness that you may be hearing. And so, for example, one of the reasons why one of the reasons, it's certainly not the only, but one of the reasons I've never pursued really big, raspy sounds in my own voice is because my vocal folds just don't tend to lend themselves to that sort of sound. I must say the other reason is because I just don't have a desire or passion myself to sing that material. But certainly you do have to, this is something that we don't take into account enough here online, not here at Voice Essentials. We're talking about it all the time here at Voice Essentials, but you've got to identify what is your larynx, your larynge, your person, your biology, your personal biology capable of. And discover and explore that. Don't you know, what we don't want to be doing is jumping onto YouTube, and certainly, Ben, I am not saying that you're doing this, but we just see this all the time, is online we see so many sometimes excellent examples of great singing by, you know, cover artists who, you know, are just brilliant, but the song has been written for that person. Now, there are millions of people whose laryngeal biology may be quite suitable to that song and produce a really agreeable, acceptable sound to that song because their specific biology really lines up with that. But that doesn't mean everyone's is going to. And so it's always something that we've got to remember, you know, celebrate your uniqueness. Celebrate it. Don't shy away from it. Raul, and I'm pretty sure, Raul, you've been here many times before, and welcome back. Do you willingly try to make the transition between falsetto and chest voice smoother, or make the chest voice bigger? It comes down to what choice do you want to make? What are you hoping to achieve? There are no rights and wrongs. This is one of the things I love about contemporary voice. Contemporary voice is not a discipline of right or wrong. Now, contemporary voice is a discipline of better and best choices, making the right choice at the right time, but there's no rights or wrongs. And so, just be mindful that you don't have to, it's not a matter of, you know, should you have should we hear a break in the transition point, or, you know, if we were in classical singing, and, you know, we talked about classical singing here, which we don't, because I'm not a classical teacher, but if let's say we were, then the answer to your question would be very different. You know, we would absolutely be looking to not only smooth out your transitions and empower you to sing through the transitions, we would be demanding it of the voice. And so just remember that it's all within the context of contemporary singing, that what we are looking to do is to empower ourselves as the singer with all of the skills that enable me to be in control of the voice so that I can make the choices I want to. There is nothing more frustrating for a creative, whether it be in any discipline of the arts, there is nothing more frustrating than for you to be able to hear it or see it in your head and not be able to replicate that, whether it be in singing, painting, dance. And so our skill acquisition as singers is all about empowering choice. That's what it's all about. Of course, we do have to also acknowledge that in singing, you know, skill acquisition is all about empowering, also about empowering health and sustainability and efficiency. But from an aesthetic view, it is about empowering choice. That's the key. Okay, so let's jump in here. Oh, Dust, I've just seen your comment out of the left of my eye. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. I'll try to explain belt that way. I hope that you know, conveys the right message. And someone has asked, Burger Munch, Burger Munch, I like that. Where Linda has answered you, Burger. I'm in Queensland, Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. I am in the place where the 2032 Olympics will be held. We all know the Olympics is on in Tokyo at the moment. Well, in 11 years' time, the Olympics will be in my hometown. We're a city of about 2 million people, I think we're up to. The greater region is about 4 million. That's where I am. And so, yeah, there you go. One more question, which I'm going to give to AR MJim 14. Before April, my vocal range was A3 to C5. Good. Now, After about 2 months of not singing, I can't even hit a G4. Will this vocal range be permanent? Will I ever been able to hit a C5 with chest voice again? By the way, I'm 14 years. The key part of your question there is, by the way, I'm 14 years old, 14-year-old male specifically. Yeah, so I would hazard a guess that your voice is going through maturation at the moment. And there are, depending on which model you look at, there are 5 phases or stages of the pubescent voice. And at the moment, what did you say your vocal range has come down to? You can't even hit a G4. ARM, Jim, very normal. So what happens is your prepubescent male voice will generally sit quite high, in almost like a soprano. This is why we refer to them as often as boy sopranos, and that's where most young boys will start. And so what happens is we don't just say we've got a singer who can sing over 2 octaves and they start off really high. When they're going through puberty, the voice doesn't just, equally over 2 octaves move all the way down. I'm going to come over here just so you can see a fuller screen. So you don't just start up here and then the whole thing in equal temperament just move down. What happens is the voice doesn't just move down, it will shrink and move down, and then it will actually lower, and then the top note will just fill out again. I hope you don't mind me watching my own hands as I'm trying to keep it on screen there. And so it's going to take time. And, I know when you're 14 years of age, it can be, you can get a little bit nervous of, oh, where's my C5 gone? Will it ever come back? I can't tell you whether once your voice settles into its first emerging adult version and then full adult version, and keeping in mind that your voice doesn't fully mature. It'll fully settle by the time you're 17, 18 for the most part, but it doesn't fully mature until your late 20s, early 30s, through a process called ossification. And that's where the cartilage that makes up the majority structural elements of the voice is cartilage, and ossification is where that cartilage will harden and become like bone, and so the larynge becomes far more rigorous and robust. And so that takes some time, but you can be assured that billions of the human experience prior to you we've all gone through it, and we all come out the other end, yes, with a different sounding voice, yes, with different parameters that we're able to achieve, whether it be up into C5s and C6s or down to beyond C2s like Matt, we were talking earlier in today's show, but it will settle. I do encourage you, don't overly push your voice during this period of time. As your voice goes through this maturation process, it's fragile, and you want, I'm not saying don't use your voice during this time, but don't push it beyond what it feels comfortable to do. Allow it to go through the change, and then you are going to find that as you come out the other end of that into your 15th, 16th, 17th year, that your voice is able and capable of achieving some higher notes. So there you go. I hope you found that helpful. I do apologize that we didn't get to some of the other questions today, but we never get through them all. This is why the super chats is the way to go. If you absolutely must have your questions answered during our Q&A, then certainly the way to do it. Let me just get into here. Certainly the way to do it is to leave a super chat. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's Hangout. If you're in lockdown, no matter where you are in the world, if you're in lockdown currently, I hope that was a good way to escape for the last 50 minutes or so. And I do hope you remain safe. Next week, Sharon. So looking forward to hanging out with Sharon. We will have a lot of fun. You are going to fall in love with Sharon. She's just that kind of human being. So I hope you'll join us. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the white bell icon, just so you don't miss the notification for the live show. I do look forward to hanging out with you again next week. Have a great week, and I wish you all the best. I'm Dr. Dan.